Hi guys, this is the 12.3 energy part 2. So we've explained all of the energy requirements, we've explained all the METs, all the BMR, all the ways to measure body composition. So now we're going to actually put this into a specific person and a character and see what happens when we do the BMR and the METs for a certain person or professional athlete. So my chosen athlete is Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal is a retired American professional basketball player who's now actually a TV analyst. He's listed as 7'1" and weighs 325 pounds, which is 147 kilograms. He's also one of the heaviest players to actually ever play basketball in the NBA, and he actually played for 19 years. So he's retired now, but he's actually still physically active. He's still really, really active. He goes to the gym 4 days a week, and he actually has a set routine. And his routine for a typical day is, and all of these exercises are for 20 minutes. So his typical day, for 20 minutes each, he'll do a bench press for 20 minutes, military press for 20 minutes, pull-ups for 20 minutes, internal and external rotator cuff exercises for 20 minutes, leg raises for 20 minutes, and oblique sit-ups. So all of those exercises that we've just said he does for 20 minutes. So he's actually doing probably about 3 to 4 hours work in a gym on a typical day just to maintain his body weight and muscle percentages. So then, let's apply this to what we've talked about before. So how do we calculate a BMR and a MET? So BMR is for Shaquille O'Neal, because he's over the age of 18, and he's from 18 to 35, which is the limit. His number will be 15.57 times his weight in kilograms, which we said is 147, and then add 658.2. So if we do this in general, BMR is obviously without exercise. This is when your body's slept for 8 hours and has been sedentary and has fasted for 12 hours. So his BMR total is 2,871.579. That's actually a really large BMR. Obviously, there are going to be some factors that partake in why it's so large. Firstly, it's because of his actual size. We've established that he is actually a very large person, a large human being. But actually, if you go back to the previous part of the video, part 1, we've actually stated that it's partly to do with his age. He's now fully grown, so he is going to require a lot of energy. Not as much as adolescence, but age is affecting how much he's actually requiring. His gender, if he was a female, he wouldn't need as much, but because he's a male, he's actually going to need more energy. And physical activity. Because he weighs so much, and because he's done so much physical activity previously, his muscles are a lot stronger, which means his muscles need energy, his muscles need it, and obviously he's put on weight because of the muscle, so obviously that's going to affect in the calculations for the BMR. So that's his BMR. And just comparing that to somebody of an 18-year-old, for example. An 18-year-old generally has about 1,500 to 1,600. So he's actually 1,200 over a typical 18-year-old. So he's over, there's 1,200 calories needed above and over 18. So that's the sort of typical, this is a scale we're talking about. An under 18 for a BMR typically has 1,600 calories. And Shaquille O'Neal has 2,800 calories. So that's the top of the scale we're looking at here. And obviously we've explained all of his exercises. That's partly to do with the physical activity and things like that. So let's move on to the METs quickly now. So the METs, obviously, if we were going to... A MET is including your exercises per day and what you do on a typical day. So it's more specific and it's more applied to a person. We can actually apply this completely to this character that we're looking at. So I have actually done the calculations for each of the typical exercises that he does per day. And just to give you an example of one of them, obviously I'm not going to be explaining every single one that I've done, otherwise that would take a large amount of time. So let's just give you an example. So for his oblique sit-ups, the MET for that exercise is 8.0 because that's really hard, intense gym work. So that's 8.0 times 3.5, as we've said, times his weight, which is 147 kilograms, as we've used before in the BMR, divided by 200, and you actually times the 20 minutes that he's actually doing that exercise, that comes to 411 calories. So that's what he needs for that exercise specifically. If you add all of the exercises he does up together, his total METs for a day, his typical day, is 3,461. That's a very large amount of METs. But if we were going to do a calorific intake, which is what he would need through a whole day, through doing all this exercise, and the 8 hours sleep, and the 12 hours fasting, you'd add the METs that you've worked out for his day, and you'd add his BMR, which you've previously worked out. If you add both of those together, that's 3,461, add his BMR, which is 2,871, you get a total of 6,332. So he needs 6,332 calories per day. And just to compare that again, as we've just done previously, we'll compare that to an 18-year-old who's physically active. An 18-year-old would typically be, a male 18-year-old, be about 3,000 is the general standardised average. So this Shaquille O'Neal needs 6,332 calories per day, and an average 18-year-old male would need 3,108 per day. So this is the scale that we're looking at. The calorific intake is a massive difference in what Shaquille O'Neal, the professional athlete, actually needs, and what an over 18-year-old actually needs. So we're comparing the two here, and there's such a large scale, it's quite shocking. So just to recap, we've talked about who the character is, how much he weighs and what he's doing now, and how active he is. We've talked about his day, his active lifestyle, what exercises he does, and now we've actually applied the BMR and the METs, what we've learned previously in part 1, into this specific professional athlete.